Welcome to the Authentic Self Revolution. I'm Carly, your guide on this journey to genuine living and the real wealth of freedom and fulfillment. In a world that just loves to tell us who we should be, we're here to remember who we truly are. We're here for the questioners, the misfits, and anyone who's ever felt there must be more to life than following this script. Each week, we peel back the layers of shoulds and musts and dive into practical ways to live more authentically. If you're listening only and want to see my face, you can head over to my YouTube channel, Owning Authenticity, where you'll find this podcast along with a treasure trove of other content aimed at uncovering who you truly are. Your authentic self is waiting. So let's dive in. In today's episode, I am going to share with you 5 signs that you're living from social conditioning. And what I want to say first off about this is that, as we've gone into on some of these previous episodes, this journey of authenticity is a never-ending one. Okay, so basically, what I mean by that is as we go through these 5 signs that you're living from social conditioning, I would like you, instead of thinking of them as black and white, like, no, I don't have that one, or yes, I do have that one. Think of it more like on a scale of 0 to 5, on a scale of like 0 to 10 or 0 to 100 even, to get really specific about how much does that piece affect me. Not does it affect me or does it not affect me? Because let me tell you what, if you're thinking it doesn't affect you, most likely that piece is in the shadow. You're unconscious of how it affects you, or it's like a fish in water. It's so normal. It's hiding in plain sight. Okay, so that's what I'll say, is that basically all of that means we're all affected by all 5 of these signs. Just to what degree, that's up for you and to determine in your self-assessment. But as we think about this overarching journey that we're taking of understanding social conditioning and really diving deep into how it works and where it came from and how normal it is and how it really never ends, right? Like, we are still being conditioned, and at any point we can take the reins of that process and choose what to condition ourselves with on purpose. Okay. So the fact that you're even listening to this podcast tells me that's what you're doing. So congratulations on conditioning yourself on purpose, because my perspective is very empowering. I believe that you have all the power in the world to create your reality to be exactly what you want it to be. So when you listen to me talk, you are conditioning yourself into believing in your own power. Okay. And when you listen to other people talk, you're conditioning yourself into whatever they believe is true about you and the world. And your power, choosing like your power, like just holding your power, just means remembering you have a choice and choosing your choice on purpose. And so you having power in this conditioning process means you're deciding, who do you want to listen to? Who gets to put information into your system? That's your choice, right? So like, you can't choose what's on the radio. You can't choose what's on the TV channel, but you can choose to turn it off. You can choose to, I don't want to listen to that station anymore. I don't want to listen to that channel. I don't like what they're saying on that channel. And there's a lot of people who want to like wage war against the channel. And it's like, dude, just friggin' turn it off. Just stop listening to it. Done. You know, like, bam, they lose in your reality, right? Your power exists in your reality. And so you choosing what information you expose yourself to, what food you expose yourself to, what on and on and on, like, you get to choose. You have the power to create your reality exactly the way you want it to be. And these 5 signs that you're living from social conditioning, these are the things where like we kind of fall back asleep. Like we forget that we have a choice. And it's these things that are getting in the way of us remembering that we have a choice, okay, and choosing our choice on purpose. And so just to catch us up, as far as like, this is the third episode in this social conditioning series. So if you haven't listened to the last couple, we basically talked about what even is social conditioning. And the very basic gist of it is that this is what you were taught is the difference between right and wrong. That these are the good things and these are the bad things. And then we as human beings programmed for survival, we will always try to be the good things. Okay. And I can't even tell you what the good things are in your own inner world, in your social conditioning, because that varies by culture, by generation, by family, by religion, by political party. Like, right and wrong is just what you believe it is. Okay. So good and bad is just what you believe it is. The truth is just what you believe in. If you believe it's true, then it is. If you believe it's not true, then it's not. Okay. So like, we're starting to take back our power by even opening up the possibility that what I was taught is true may or may not be for me. Right? Again, we don't get to wage war on other people's belief systems, or hopefully we aren't doing that. But other people get to believe whatever they want, and so do you. You get to define the truth based on what your authentic self feels, based on what your guidance system is saying. And how I judge truth is if it relaxes me, if it soothes me, if it helps me to feel better, if it helps me to feel more expansive, if it helps me to feel more alive, and like my juices are flowing, like I am in the flow of more of who I am, that thing is true. And if it shrinks me, if it hurts me, if it offends my sense of who I believe myself to be, then it's not true for me. Okay, again, other people are allowed to believe whatever they want to believe, but I reject anything that would have me shrink. Okay, and so even how do you decide what's true is a very key piece of this authenticity journey, because a lot of times, especially when we're living out of our social conditioning, we decide what's true based on what our social group already believes. We adopt their version and we go with it because at least if we're believing what they believe, we'll fit in with them, and that's good enough. And it is until it's not, you know. And like, one of the first signs of how to know if you're living from your social conditioning is that you have a persistent sense of dissatisfaction or emptiness. Okay, that's what I'm saying about like, if we just believe what the people around us believe, yes, we will fit in with them, but we also will have a sense of emptiness inside of our soul because we're not being true to who we really are. And that isn't always the case, but wherever that sense of emptiness is, wherever that sense of dissatisfaction is, that's a pretty key piece that lets you know you're not living from your authentic truth on that front. You know, if you were in the Authentic Self Uprising event with me and we talked about unmasking ourselves, it isn't just a one and done kind of thing, because our true self actually has lots of different facets. Okay, so maybe some of our facets fit in with our social group and some of our facets don't. Okay, and that's another example of one of the signs of hiding aspects of your personality to fit in with your peer group. Okay. And this is something that like, you can do that strategically, as far as like, I am on purpose hiding this part of myself. I am on purpose like excluding this part of myself to have a more harmonious situation going on here with these people. And like, dude, that's the beauty of free will. That's the beauty of the privacy of our own inner world, that you can make that judgment call. And if you do that the majority of the time with the majority of the people in your life, right? Like that's where that sense of emptiness is coming from, is like you're leaving parts of yourself out of who you are. And so like my example of this is like when I go around my family of origin, like I don't talk to them about the authenticity journey. I don't talk to them about social conditioning. I don't talk to them about, you know, like living your purpose and building your dream life and astrology and human design and tarot cards and oracle. Like I don't talk to them about these things. I leave a gigantic chunk of myself out when I go around them. And I spend about 1 hour a week with these people and pretty much everybody else that I encounter during the rest of the many, many, many hours of the week. I am able to be my full self, you know? And so it's like a balance. Like nobody says you have to be your whole self all the time with all the people. That's actually probably not super smart as far as like keeping yourself safe. If these people are going to jump all over you and like have all kinds of opinions and tear you down because blah, 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 then yeah, don't show them who you really are. Like that's not the requirement of like living as your authentic self. But on the other hand, perhaps it's worthwhile to think about cultivating relationships where you can be more and more and more of who you really are. You know, like nobody says that you have to keep your certain social group and they don't let me be who I am, so I can't be that. Well, you can spend 10% less time with them and go find yourself a friend where you can talk about astrology or you can talk about authenticity or vulnerability or emotions or whatever the case is. Hire a coach, go see a therapist. Like you can build safe space for who you really are, right? That's your choice. And that's where like, you know, somebody said to me recently, like they're worried that, you know, if they step more into their authenticity, that they're not going to belong. And I personally have come to a place where the most important person to belong to is yourself. Okay. And then whoever else wants to spend time around you, whoever else wants to let you into their social group, that's a gift for them to decide to do that, because like you're a pretty sweet person and you can never like not belong. You can never like just be an outcast as long as you belong to yourself, right? As long as you have your own back, as long as you love yourself, you'll always have love. As long as you belong to yourself, you'll always have belonging. So it's worthwhile to think about this relationship between you and you. Another of the signs that you're living from social conditioning is that as you make decisions, a big chunk of the equation is what you should be doing. Okay, so like listening to your internal dialogue, listening to what you say about should. I should, you should, on and on and on. Okay, so those shoulds, like that's really your social conditioning talking. Because like we've said before, like when you are lit up with passion and purpose and your soul is talking, there's a lot of I can't wait to, I get to, hell yes, I'm all in. Not, well, I guess I should do the right thing, whatever that means, so I can be a good person, so I can belong to these social groups so that I can stay safe. Shoulds are trying to keep you safe, and they will, most likely. We can't guarantee that, but there's a decent shot. And they will also keep you small. They will also keep you empty and dissatisfied and lacking the vitality of living from the core of who you really are. So it's a trade-off. There's a price to pay to stay safe. Right? Yes, becoming more of who you really are, stepping more fully into your authenticity and living from your soul, it's a risk because you risk rejection. You risk being an outcast for certain social groups. But focusing on that is doing a disservice to, there's also a cost for staying safe. There's a cost to fitting in. You're paying the price of like living as your true self. And that sounds dangerous to me. Right? That emptiness, that void is nothing to trifle with, okay? Because we do all kinds of interesting things to try to fill that void. We stay in dissatisfying relationships. We stay in jobs that we hate. We chase material things. We chase money and possessions. We overeat. We overdrink. We overmedicate. We overthink. We on and on and on and on to deal with this void. And so the cost of fitting in is all of that, is all this anxiety and depression that now needs to be medicated. And it's like, what if the medication is living more fully from who you really are? Getting even more honest with yourself and then others about who you really are and what you really want. And I know that this is easier said than done. And I've walked the path and I know the feeling. I know the hot on your skin. I know the sick in your stomach. I know the butterflies. I know the racing thoughts about like, what are the other people going to think? Like, what if they don't like me anymore after I do this, after I set this boundary, after I speak this truth, after I admit this thing? What if they leave me behind? I know. I've been there. I've stood in that spot. And in that moment, the choice is roll the dice on maybe they'll leave you behind or leave yourself behind. It's a trade-off. And I'm telling you, leaving yourself behind is the more dangerous option, but that's something that you get to come to for yourself. You hold the power to choose, right? In every single moment, do I sacrifice who I am and fit in with these other people? Do I want their approval or do I want my approval? That's your choice in every single social situation. And that's a beautiful thing because you can choose whatever you want. Like I said, I choose to spend time around my family, even though I don't show up as like my full self in some ways, you know, like that's our choice. And we get to make that choice every day based on where we are. And we get to step outside our comfort zone, one tiny baby step at a time when we're ready to do that. And another piece of living from our social conditioning is this fear of judgment and fear of rejection for being different. And I remember like in high school, I'm not going to tell the full story because it's kind of graphic and a little bit TMI, but I had this like pervasive fear. I mean, I would get like almost panic attacks about being different. Like, what if I'm different? What if like as I let people get closer and closer to me, they find out that I'm really different? I'm like a freak. I'm like a mutant. And I just don't know it because like nobody has ever gotten close enough to me to like figure that out. And then like they run away screaming because I'm actually a mutant. Like this was like literally my paralyzing thought when I was in high school. And I just like, I don't know how else to get over it other than you've got to take off your mask. You've got to actually get naked, quote unquote, like so to speak, metaphorically naked, and show who you really are in the safest place you can find, okay? The place where you think like they will most likely accept me. You can't know that because you haven't done it yet, right? It's the unknown, but you make a bet, you make the safe bet, right? You find a community where authenticity is valued. You find a community where vulnerability and emotional honesty is valued. And then you show them a little bit about who you are. And then they're like, oh yeah, totally. We all feel that way sometimes. Yeah, that sounds really normal. I've totally been there. I can 100% relate. And that is medicine. It's medicine for this fear of like, I'm so different. I'm a mutant. I'm an alien. Like nobody is like me, like on and on. When we keep it all inside, it's easy to believe that. And the only way to really get over that is to face that fear and show your real self and have it be accepted. First by you, right? It takes a lot of self-acceptance to do that. And then by a safe community or a safe friend or a coach or therapist or whatever it is. The next one, the next sign that you're living from social conditioning is difficulty identifying your own values and preferences. This is going out to the folks who are like, I don't even know what I want. That's a pretty good sign that mostly you're looking at life through the lens of social conditioning. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, because honestly, that's where we all start. That's the starting point, is I don't know what I want. And let me tell you what a beautiful thing that is. Okay. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. And if you are at least even asking the question of what do I really want, you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the curve. Okay. Because there's a lot of people out there who don't even know that they have this choice. All right. So like the uncertainty, the unanswered question of I don't know what I want is progress. Even considering what your values really are is progress. Okay. Even trying to feel inside yourself, like, what is my preference? And that for me personally was something that like I had to go into solitude. In order to like really get some momentum going around this, I had to spend time alone where, when we think about our self, and like I mentioned, like we talked about an authentic self uprising, it's like there is such a multifaceted self living inside you. Like it would blow your mind if you really got conscious of just how many versions of self of you there are. Okay. And like one very basic oversimplification is that like there's a social self and there's an authentic self, or maybe AKA a private self. Okay. Like the self that you are when nobody's watching, the self that you are inside your mind, inside your heart, the self you are in total privacy. That's your authentic self. And then when we go out and we get in front of this person or this group or this job or whatever, we armor up, we mask up, we put on who we think we should be. Okay, that's our social self. And again, like you could have like a version you show to your spouse. You could have a version you show to your coach. You could have a version you show to your work. Dude, like most of us got a collection of masks that we wear depending on the situation. And that's why I say going into solitude is the easiest place for this to emerge. Take everybody else out of the equation and give yourself an hour, give yourself a day to only turn inward and listen to, what do I really want? Nobody else is here. Nobody else cares what I eat for lunch. Nobody else cares what I do with my time this afternoon. What am I going to do? What would just be the best possible option for me? And just even starting to ask those questions, again, you're ahead of the curve. And if you want to get real hardcore, I highly recommend solo vacations, solo retreats. And this might be like a solo staycation if you have the option of like being alone in your home. But if there are other people living in your home, spending 2 days or 3 days or 10 days to go somewhere and be by yourself, it's hardcore. I'll tell those stories sometime on another episode about my solo vacations. I've taken several. I almost always have some kind of dark night of the soul experience, which is not really selling it. I totally understand. But it's hard. It's hard to face yourself when you're not used to doing that. And so starting small with a couple of days and having realistic expectations that there's a reason that we keep ourselves so preoccupied with what everybody else is doing. Okay. Like, it's not like, well, I don't have time to face myself. No, you don't want to. You're happily not making time to face yourself. And so then we go off on a solo vacation and give ourselves 5 days of like, I'm going to just be with myself. And then it's like, fuck, it's so much harder than you think it is. That's why I say this is the hardcore. This is like the black belt ninja option of like really getting in touch with your own preferences, is to go off by yourself for several days. But the last one of these 5 signs of you're living according to social conditioning is constantly seeking external validation, right? I'm not okay unless somebody else agrees with me. I'm not okay. I don't know if I'm right or wrong unless you agree that I'm on the right path. This is like, okay, so this is where I'm saying like, it might be so invisible that you don't even see that you're doing it. But like when you're like, well, it's like this, right? And like, you want to know, do you agree with me? And like, why do you want them to agree with you? Why do you need them to agree? Because you are functioning based on external validation instead of internal validation. And again, this is the starting point for everyone. We are trained as children to trust the external authority. Trust the parent, trust the teacher, trust the police officer. We are trained, we are indoctrinated, no different than a cult. We are brainwashed into believing the external authority has your answer. They are the leader. Follow what they say. That's how most children are raised. And that is just, it's a recipe for now you need to listen to the authentic self-revolution and like get back in touch with who you really are, because almost no children are raised like being taught how to hold their power, being taught how to choose for themselves, right? Being taught how to validate themselves. And I am not a parent yet, but when I become one, my goal is to teach my child how to hold their own power and how to not take it away from them. You know, how to teach them to be their own authority figure, which means I don't get to control them. I don't get to make choices for them. They do. And because they will have to live with the consequences of those choices. And that's the real gut punch on this whole like external validation thing, is like, you take the advice of the external authority, you do the thing, and then it just shit hits the fan, right? Like I had a client that was talking about how like their parent introduced them to a guy and ended up marrying that guy and then having just like an avalanche of abuse and near torture, according to my own opinion. And that was like, well, you know, my dad introduced us. My dad thought they were a good guy. And so like, I just kind of was like, yeah, sure. You know, and then your dad isn't the one that has to live with it. You are. Okay. The external authority doesn't actually have to live with the choices that you make. You do. So this is, you know, again, not an easy thing. And to even be considering what it means to validate yourself, even if you're like, I have no friggin' idea where to even start. I have no idea how to do that. Or I don't really know, like, where am I still doing it? You know, like I said at the beginning, we all have these. And then it's like believing that you don't have it just means it's in the shadow, just means you can't see how you're doing it to yourself. And so it's like, I don't really know how to do that. Well, I would love to invite you into an authenticity activation session with me where we can talk about what is it that you really want. You know, what are your soul's preferences, and what are the social conditioning, the shoulds, the beliefs, the rights and the wrongs that are holding you back from living more fully from the center of who you really are. Get clear on what you want, get unstuck from the things standing in your way, and take some steps towards building the life of your dreams. This is a free Zoom session that I offer. You can go to my website, owningauthenticity.com/activate, and book yours now. And we can talk about your specific situation. And I can do my best to meet you with total non-judgmental acceptance, to meet you with questions and curiosity and invitations to personalize your own definition of truth. Okay, and if that's something that you're interested in, that's an option that you can take advantage of. Until next time, I do hope that you are taking really good care of yourself, that you are granting that to yourself, and so will I.